It's a peaceful morning here in Fresno, California, and I am leaving the house of some family of ours and gonna make my way home to Bellingham today. I'm gonna try to do this whole trip in one day. It's about 1,004 miles, and I wanted to be able to showcase that even with the Model 3 with the smallest range, you can still do a trip like this, as long as you don't linger too much in between your stops. So should be an adventure. On the road for about an hour. It's a beautiful, peaceful morning here in Central California. Plugged my home address into the Tesla navigation, and it's predicting that I'll get home tonight at 12:30, just after midnight. And it's looks like it wants me to stop in Sacramento as my first charging stop. I think it was saying that it wanted me to go about 170 miles on my first length, and I know I can do better than that, so I think I'll do that. Well, I just drove for 182 miles and used about 44 kilowatts of electricity, averaged about 240 watt hours a mile. I'm charging in Woodland, just north of Sacramento, and it's 8:48 a.m. So yeah, making good progress. Here's what my charge rate is currently. It was at 170, but then it dipped down pretty quick to close to 150. I'm on the road again after a brief, about 18-minute charge. Charged from about 38% to 80%. So I'm real pleased with that. That's very quick. I drove about 130 miles from Woodland, California, near Sacramento, up to Cottonwood by Redding. So I'm gonna drive through the Shasta area and Northern California, and my next stop is in Medford, about 150 miles away. So I'm climbing into the mountains of Northern California, Southern Oregon, and just wanted to touch a little bit on temperatures throughout the trip today. Pretty much from Fresno to here, it's always been, low 60s to low 50s. Hasn't been a whole lot of temperature variation. I think there's been some mild winds, but nothing too major. So really, for the car, pretty mild, close to ideal conditions. Nothing that should affect range too much. I have arrived at my third charger at the Target in Medford, Oregon. It was a 165 mile drive, used about 39 kilowatt hours of electricity, averaging about 240 watt hours per mile. Took me about 2.5 hours to get here. So I think it's just going to be a short charge and then back on the road. Here's the Sutherland supercharger. There's over 50 stations. And I've never seen more than 5 cars here. And I've come through here about 6 times. But a really impressive supercharging site. And there's, all of these are the 250 kilowatt version 3. I'm charging at the top speed for the cheapest Model 3 with the lithium phosphate battery. And yeah, I drove 108 miles, drove about an hour and 40 minutes. This is my most efficient section of the drive so far. There was a mountain climb, but then kind of a long downhill section. So 219 watt hours per mile. And I've gone about 580 miles. So I'm over halfway done with my drive for today at 4 p.m. This is one of the biggest superchargers in the country. I've arrived in Washington State. I'm at the Ridgefield supercharger. That last stretch from Sutherland up through the top of Oregon and through Portland. I drove 188 miles, about 2 hours and 56 minutes, and used 222 watt hours per mile, and 42 kilowatt hours. So charging, I arrived here with about 6%. And I think I'm going to charge to 80 and get back on the road. So car now is saying I'm going to get home around 11:30ish. So I've shaved about a half hour by kind of picking, doing a little bit longer stretches between superchargers for the most part. And also trying to stick to only 250 kilowatt stations. Supercharger in Tukwila, Washington. This should be my last charge of the night. I have arrived in Tukwila, Washington, just south of Seattle. I've got about another 95 miles to get home. And this last stretch, I drove about 140 miles from the Vancouver, Washington area up to basically Seattle. And it took about 2 hours, 15 minutes. This should only be like a 12-minute charge. I did have to switch superchargers. First time I've had to do that on the trip. As the first supercharger I went to, these are all 250s here, but the first one only gave me 75 kilowatts. So I switched to this one, and this one gave me the 170 and then started bumping down to 150, 140. Well, that was a long day. I'm glad I'm home. I drove the last 99 miles, took an hour and 35 minutes, used 24 kilowatt hours, and I averaged 238 watt hours per mile. It was pretty windy once I got closer to home. So overall, I drove about 1,010 miles from Fresno to Bellingham.